There are new construction homes going in just about everywhere you look in most parts of the North Metro Atlanta area these days. So many people who reach out to me to help them find a home want to be in a new build for many reasons. People like the fact that everything is brand new and move-in ready with a new construction home. You don't have to budget for things like updates, new paint, flooring, systems, anything of that sort. You get to make more decisions about design, you get to find a lot, find a floor plan that you like so that everything fits your needs. So it's no surprise that so many people who want to go this route are choosing new construction. But what are the ins and outs of new construction that no one ever tells you? Hi, I'm Sarah Maslowski with KeyPoint Homes Group, a local real estate agent here in the North Metro Atlanta area. And I specialize in helping people from all over the country relocate right here to Georgia. I have helped dozens of families buy new construction homes over the years, and it is such a different process from buying a resale home. So today we're going to dive into everything you need to know about buying a new construction home.
One of the biggest perks that not many people realize about buying new construction is that it is oftentimes a better deal than buying a resale home. Builders usually have incentives that you can take advantage of, and oftentimes they are rather generous. For example, I had a buyer who was considering buying a new construction home that the builder was offering $35,000 in incentives on. This money could be used towards upgrades to add additional features to the home, to lower the purchase price of the home. You could have used it to buy down the interest rate or pay for closing costs or to lock in the interest rate for the whole time that the home was being built, or a combination of those. We will talk about why that would be important later, but basically they could use this chunk of money in whatever way made the biggest impact on their purchase. Part of these funds usually come from the builder's preferred lender. Now, just because the builder's preferred lender is offering incentives doesn't necessarily mean it's best to use them for your loan. I work with absolutely incredible lenders who truly want the best for you. So even if you are looking to purchase a new construction home and think that the builder's lender is offering something that just can't be beat, I'm still going to recommend that you talk with a local lender so that we can kind of compare apples to apples and make sure you're getting the best deal. Now, this does vary based on the builder, but for example, if you are looking in a D.R. Horton community, their in-house lender is also owned by D.R. Horton, so of course they are going to want you to use them so that they can keep all that business on their side. But you may find that the $5,000 in closing costs that they are offering you just to use them is charged back to you in other ways on the loan, in fees and upcharges. Sometimes if you are working with a smaller builder, they may use someone local as their preferred lender, and they're more likely to actually credit you with whatever incentives they are offering. That's why, regardless of what you decide, I want you to be in touch with the people who, like I mentioned, truly want the best for my clients to take a look at whatever you are offered. Sometimes they will notice that those fees being charged to you in other places, and sometimes they'll say, hey, these are awesome incentives that I'm not going to be able to beat, so you are in good hands. Now, if you're open to buying a home in a more rural area, another way buying new construction can be such a good deal is if you are able to utilize a USDA loan. A USDA loan is a government-backed loan that doesn't require you to make a down payment at closing. So this means that all you pay for at closing are your actual closing costs. Closing costs are what many builders' incentives pay for, which means that you can essentially buy a home without having to hardly pay anything at the closing table. That is a huge deal. Now, not everyone is going to qualify for a USDA loan because this is a loan program that is designed to help lower income families, or there's like an income cap on this. So it might not work out for you, but you can still take advantage of those awesome incentives and rate buy downs and the builder paying closing costs, even if you don't qualify for a USDA loan. Now, something that I touched on a few minutes ago was that my client had the opportunity to use the builder's incentives to pay to lock in their interest rate for the entire time that their house was being built. When buying a new build that is not an already complete spec home, meaning that you're going to build from the ground up, you won't know exactly what your monthly payment will be until you are closer to the end of the house being done, because you cannot lock in your mortgage rate typically until about 45 days until your closing. If you are buying a home that has already been started, and let's say it's going to close within 2 months, this is not that big of a deal because there will only be a week or two difference in being able to lock in your interest rate. So you only have that small period of time where you are exposed to changes in the market. So if you're working with a builder who lets you pick out your lot and floor plan and make design choices, this is typically a pretty long process, anywhere from 6 months to a year, depending upon the builder. Now, interest rates might be really good at the time you're searching for a home, but if it's going to take 9 months to build that house, you will have to wait until that time period before closing to get your rate locked in. So you won't know until then what your interest rate will be, which is obviously going to directly impact your monthly payment. This does expose you to a bigger time period of not having that rate locked in. And if interest rates fluctuate drastically, which they have over the past year, this will have a significant impact on your monthly payment unless you pay to lock your rate in. The longer you lock your rate for, the more expensive it's going to be. If you're trying to stick to a very particular payment amount each month, having an extended period of time without a locked interest rate is going to be a gamble. Now, if you're buying something with a 3 or 4 month build time, you are likely not going to see a massive change in interest rates. But again, there are no guarantees, and you ultimately have to do whatever you think is best based on your financial situation. Something that you might not know about buying a new construction home is that you should always have your own agent representing you and your best interest. When you buy a new construction home, there's going to be an agent that works for the builder. The builder has hired them to sell their homes and to keep the builder's best interest at heart. You need someone who is going to have your best interest at heart and stand up for you in the case that something goes wrong. I'll give you an example of something that happened recently while working with a client who was buying a new construction house. It was very important to this buyer to have a home that was going to be finished in May of next year because they have had some pretty big life events that they were going to work around, and they needed to sell their house so they didn't have 2 mortgages at the same time. We chose this particular house because it was going to take the builder 10 months to build this home. So everything was going to line up perfectly, and we wrote the contract to close the house in May. Well, I got a phone call from the builder's agent a few months after we went under contract, and they said, hey, the builder's actually a little bit ahead of schedule and just wanted to give you a heads up. This home's now going to be ready at the end of March. I talked with my buyer and we decided that moving things up 6 weeks wasn't going to be that big of a deal. It wasn't ideal, but there were still things that we could still work out. So we made a verbal agreement about the new date. Well, 6 weeks later, the builder's agent calls and said, hey, we need to move the closing date again. And not only are we going to move it up again, but instead of closing in March, we now want to close this house at the beginning of January. Y'all, that's like a full 5 months earlier than what we had contractually agreed to. The builder's agent was pretty adamant that if we wanted to keep our original close date, we were the ones that were going to have to pay a huge penalty in order to do that. As you can imagine, I was adamant that my client was not going to have to pay the builder's interest and carrying costs that would be incurred had we not closed in January. I have had scenarios where a builder had to delay closing for a few weeks, but that was mainly during the pandemic times when everything was on back order and there were huge supply chain issues. But y'all, I've never had a builder move a closing date significantly forward, especially not months in advance. Now, I don't think this builder was suddenly way ahead of schedule and able to get this home done way faster than they originally thought, but rather I think there might have been a mistake in communication on the back end for the information that we were told. But if I wasn't there fighting tooth and nail for my buyer, I don't think the builder would have eaten this cost and stuck to our original closing date. I think they would have either forced the buyer to pay for those carrying fees or closed early, neither of which my buyer should have to do. The last thing you need to know is you get what you pay for. This seems like a pretty obvious statement, but sometimes people just assume that just because a house is brand new that it's going to be perfect. When you are buying a home from a massive builder like one I mentioned a little earlier, you're not going to get the same quality as you are from a smaller builder. When you are building 90,000 homes a year in states all across the country. You don't have to worry about your name and reputation as much as you do if you are a smaller builder who relies on positive word of mouth to continue a successful business. I mentioned this recently in a video about new construction homes in Monroe. I had a client purchase a home from a smaller builder for just over $500,000, and it was, hands down, one of the best built homes I had been in a long time. The only time I have ever had a client cancel the purchase of a new construction home due to poor quality was with that mega builder that we've mentioned before. Now, these mega builders are able to build a more affordable home due to the sheer volume that they produce every single year and their purchasing power when it comes to supplies. So a lot of times they are going to be one of your few options if you're looking around to the mid 400s and below. Most people are very satisfied with the quality of home they get for the price that they paid, so it's all personal experience. But you have to keep in mind that you get what you pay for, and not all builders are created equal.
So what do you think? Do the pros outweigh the cons when it comes to buying a new construction home, or is a resale home more of your thing? No matter what it is, I would love to be your real estate agent, and you can find my contact information below this video. Don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter. You'll find that sign up link also right below our video. And if you are thinking about making a move to Georgia, you have to watch this next video.